Welcome to Teams Tuesday. It's February the 16th, 2021. It's 12:15 in New York, 5:15 in London, and 10:45 in Mumbai. We have a great speaker, Susch from Microsoft, who's discussing Viva topics and SharePoint Syntex. I'm your host, Peter Ward from New York City. Stay tuned for the next 45 minutes. It's Teams Tuesday.
Thanks so much, Peter, and thank you all for joining today. I'm very excited to share some new stuff coming from Microsoft as well today. We're very lucky that this was scheduled just in time after Microsoft Viva was announced, so I will be able to dive into some areas that a lot of you may be interested in, especially around support for knowledge management and knowledge collaboration within your organization. Microsoft Viva, which was announced just over a week ago, is a way of pulling together some capabilities across the entire platform, including the topics, which is knowledge and expertise. But it includes connections, which is a way of surfacing things like your intranet and the capabilities of connecting people across your organization, right embedded inside of Teams. Insights, which is giving you insight into both your personal productivity, your organizational productivity, as well as looking at your personal well-being, which during this crisis, when people have been working from home, has become an actual real challenge that we're incorporating in accessing both for you, your manager, and your organization. Then the other pieces around learning, embedding things like LinkedIn Learning, Microsoft Learning, and other partners like Pluralsight and others to make them accessible to you during your activities inside of Teams. The key thing I'm focusing on today is around topics, and that is a real focus of where you can find information and connect experts to the content that you have across your organization. It includes things like topic pages, making knowledge discoverable no matter where you are, and being able to also leverage the knowledge more fully across the entire organization. Just to give you a quick little view, this isn't actually in GA yet, but it was announced. You'll see here that there's a highlight around the word SOAR right here inside of Teams. And what it brings up is called a topic page. And that topic page both includes the name of topic, a little bit of a description, alternate names that might refer to the same thing, people that have either been identified through the course of the AI, they are associated with this topic, either they've created or crafted content associated with it, or they've self-identified. And then the specific types of resource documents that if you had the right security trimming enabled, you would see the ones that you have access to. Now, this is part of the key capabilities rolling out soon, but you'll see that a lot of the other capabilities are already available. So this is what a topic page looks like. I'm going to show you a real one in just a moment. This is one that's mocked up in our click-through demo. It will also include Q&A. So if questions have been asked in Yammer and tagged based on that topic, they'll also be presented and you'll be able to see them and highlight them, rate them. You'll be able to identify ones that are a best answer. The key capabilities on the topic page, though, are informing you around what this topic is, a little bit about the people who are there, and even referencing particular documents that are related to that topic. And they will also surface inside of Teams going forward, where you'll see not just the homepage, but you'll also look at your own topics. You'll be able to manage the topics that you perhaps have published and control, and you'll have more access to them as well.
Kat, is this integrated into Graph and Delve? Is this like an extension of Graph and Delve?
Yes, so let me speak a little bit about that in more detail. The Microsoft Graph is actually enabling all of this, where you have the ability to understand all of the connections that are happening throughout the organization. So within Office 365, these connections are captured through the Microsoft Graph. And those connections are everything from people who are connected to people to information that is connected to other information, and capabilities like the Microsoft Search, as well as topics and SharePoint Syntex, leverage the graph to bring some of that information together. But it also uses some of our cognitive services called Azure Cognitive Services to help to analyze content and bring that content to the surface based on those particular topics. And then using the Microsoft Graph finds those related topics to bring those together. And I'm going to jump right to an example where you might actually see a topic page. So here I've actually just come into Microsoft Search. Microsoft Search, by the way, is the search bar that you see at the top of your portal page. You can also call a Microsoft Search from your Windows Search down here on the left-hand side if you've enabled that to connect to your Office 365 account. Now you'll see here that I've typed in the word Syntex. With Microsoft Search, it drops down any of the latest things related to Syntex, and you'll see that includes this presentation. But it automatically brings up the topic card within the search. You'll see here, Syntex is the topic page that has come up. It quickly shows me a brief description as well as the people and the resources. And if I want to see more, all I need to do is click on See More, and it opens up the SharePoint Syntex topic page. Now within this topic page, there's a couple of announcements. I'm actually going to switch to the Cortex one because it has a few more interesting things. So it identifies who's curator. So this is automatically generated, and we'll show you a bit about how that gets generated, but it automatically is generated from content that is discovered through the course of driving the model through the SharePoint Syntex capabilities. And by having this sort of pulled together, it also pulls in the people and any other sources of content that are associated with it. And it also generates this spider graph, which is driven by leveraging the Microsoft Graph. It pulls those other related topics associated with this topic so that you can find out more and really find out those capabilities that tie to this topic in a way that they are then easily consumable, including additional topic pages or directly to content or location where that content might be found. And that's essentially sort of the topic. Yeah.
Quick question. Okay. Can we activate Viva in our Office 365 developer subscription?
And that's not quite yet, but if you have a developer subscription, you most likely be able to enable SharePoint Syntex today, but Viva Topics is coming during this month, but that license will show up within Office 365 admin portal for your developer tenant.
Very cool.
That's a bit about the topic pages and topics in general.
Quick question. E3, is this all available in the E3 or is this additional?
SharePoint Syntex and Viva Topics are add-ons.
Okay. Another question. I'm assuming this is almost like yet another reason to have all your content and documents in OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams.
Initially, yes. However, as topics and SharePoint Syntex continue to expand over the next year or so, you'll be able to leverage connectors that are both coming available and are available in Microsoft Search, so that you would be able to actually analyze other content outside of SharePoint and OneDrive. So keep your eye out on that. Some of those will be introduced over time. From a timing perspective, sometime this year. So there's a few available today. So speak to your customer success account manager. They can probably point you to the ones that you can adopt today, just for search, that is. Let's jump right into content services, which essentially is our SharePoint Syntex capability. Now, there's a couple of challenges I'm sure you all have faced, which is in the past, it used to be really hard to sort of organize this information. You really had to do it manually with tagging and taxonomies and all these other capabilities. And a lot of organizations have, teams of people in their knowledge collaboration or knowledge management, whether they be business or IT folks who are trying to manage all this information. Well, these capabilities are meant to help to sort of replace some of that, but also to enhance that. So the AI capability doesn't take away from that completely, because we always need the insight from people and the knowledge from people to incorporate in this. So we'll spend a little time talking about how you sort of bring that together and how you transform the content and make it more accessible from a knowledge perspective. So perhaps you've already got these types of things in place, including those organizations that are managing it. Maybe, in fact, you're dealing with other challenges, including how do you classify this information from a security perspective or from a compliance perspective, making sure you can identify unique types of sensitive information types that are really unique to your organization, and maybe it's the structure of a document or the capabilities that are captured in a document. These are things that SharePoint Syntex and our content services are meant to address. So everything from how to understand the information that perhaps you're scanning in to content that's already existing within your organization, or discovering content that needs to be classified. And here I'm going to go right into another demo. And this is the content processing. What I've done is, this is a list of purchase orders that I got in place or I brought in from our finance department, etc. And I've actually run a model on this content. You'll see here that it extracted the vendor name, the content name, the requester, the subtitle, tax, and shipping, and even come up with the total information. It's pulled it out of all of these documents. And the model is already set up. I'll show you the model in just a moment. But all I need to do from here on, I've sort of trained the model with a series of documents. All I need to do from here on is drop a piece of content into this same SharePoint site, and it will then also have an extraction as soon as it's dropped in. Now, it does take a little while for me to do it in my demo tenant, so I'm not going to actually demonstrate that. But you'll see, as soon as the document is dropped, the model is run, a flow is initiated, and then it will extract and pull the content out. The content processing piece actually leverages AI Builder, which I believe you actually had a session on in a prior month. But AI Builder is being leveraged here to look at and actually review the content of a document that you are using to train it with. You'll see it's just an invoice, and it's a fairly structured invoice. Not necessarily all of them are going to look this way, but it will find those pieces based on the structure. So you'll see it automatically pulled out. The AI Builder went in using the text engine, and it pulls out vendor address, and so forth, which identified these across the 5 documents that it used as the training documents. From here, you'll build a flow that will look for those fields. By the way, you can select and remove which ones you actually want. You don't have to take them all that get generated. And not only will you develop that flow, which will traverse all of the documents that you have in a particular location, but then you can also put a Power App on top of that to initiate that by when you create a new site or a new location, or just have it kick off with the Power Automate.
One question came up, with the invoicing, is this, okay, OCR, that's been done, nothing new. How is this different to, say, traditional OCR methods?
So it's taking the next step, which is analyzing the document, pulling out relevant content or relevant information. I don't know if anybody's seen the JFK demo. But the idea is being able to pull out specific fields and the value associated with those fields. So breaking it in from a fairly structured document to structured data is what this is accomplishing. It's not just scanning the document and making it, a text document. It's pulling out relevant information that usually people manually had to pull out themselves to extract. It's using Azure Cognitive Services in the background, which is what AI Builder is based on.
There's obviously a learning process going on here, isn't it? So obviously the more complex the invoice, more rules need to be applied.
With at least 5 documents that are good examples of or the various ways in which a document may be structured, or based on the content, the values or fields that you want to extract from it, the better. And you can put as many in to teach it and to test it as you want, but you have to start with at least 5 to do the training.
I suppose that makes sense, because you need to establish the pattern.
Exactly. And it uses the same type of structure or the same kinds of capabilities if you're looking to tag a document with that kind of information as well. There's 2, as I mentioned, along with the compliance. I'm not going to cover the compliance piece because it's sort of taking advantage of the one I'm going to talk about in a second. But this is really for those fairly structured. And that's great, right? You probably have a ream of these. But the key thing we see most of our customers dealing with is that they actually have documents everywhere that don't have that kind of structure. They're more unstructured. Maybe there are sets of documents, content that's being created inside your organization that are based on your daily business processes and so forth. That's where the content understanding comes in. And this uses all of the AI cognitive services in the background. It's not using AI Builder. This is what is new, and this is the capability that is rolling out, or is rolled out with SharePoint Syntex. We have the ability to build in, so you drop documents from a library, just use it by adding library, or you pull it. And you can put these in here and drop them in here. Now from here, you then create a model where you'll want to apply this particular extraction from those documents. Now this tool essentially identifies a few potential extractors, but you can pull out and identify extractors that you want to do, and that creates the things, really the references that it will pull out from the model. Then you can actually identify the place where you want the model to run against, because you can choose SharePoint collections to point this to and then run the model against that. This is more done through, again, leveraging a lot of our AI services, and you can build upon different cognitive services in the document to build your model. I'm not going to demonstrate it here because it is a lengthy process to go through all of them, but the ultimate end state is those topic pages that gets generated. And from there, an individual can curate those documents and so forth. There are also administration tools as well to manage who does this, where are the sites that can manage this, and put more controls over the organization that might be accountable, whether they be business knowledge management experts or IT specialists. So there is those capabilities in the background, sort of managing and controlling this.
What confidence interval is considered acceptable? Is it modifiable?
It is modifiable, and there is a minimum, though I can't actually remember what that is, but within the model you can identify the specific level that you want to achieve. The last piece is around connecting the people. I sort of mentioned it, where it identifies people based on where they are, you know, if they've crafted or whether they've authored or modified or what have you documents. So those connections are in place as well. And so along with the topic cards, the people cards are being extended. So today you see people cards when you mouse over someone's name, whether they're from a document or within a search, etc. And that will now also show topics that they have been identified for, whether they've curated, authored, or written and or self-identified. So those are capabilities that are being added as well. I don't have one to demonstrate today, but they are rolling out with the announcement of Viva topics.
Kat, do you actually have an example or demo or explanations of the, entity extractors? Do you also need to flow like AI Builder in order to set the metadata?
It doesn't use AI Builder specifically, but you could take and leverage Flow or Logic Apps if you wanted to take that deeper than what your model can accomplish. So if you develop a model and you've identified, the core document sets and the libraries that you wanted to work on, and you still want to do something else on those documents, you can extend it using Power Automate and Logic Apps.
Is this also going into things like facial recognition as well? Because I know Azure has this feature.
Yeah, it's not. It's primarily around knowledge and for knowledge understanding and knowledge management. But yes, you can always leverage those other AI capabilities if you wanted to extend it further, but it isn't embedded in the current capabilities today.
All right, okay.
I've included resources here, and after the session, I'll make sure that you have these links, Peter, so that you can make them available.
Okay, now I'm assuming Ignite, this is going to be rock and roll. Unite, yes. Ignite, this is one of the big announcements.
Well, it actually was announced a week ago, Thursday. There will be more deeper dives into the capability at Ignite, so be sure to sign up for those specifically. I do know that a lot of them will focus not just on topics, but there's also a lot of information coming around Viva Learning, Viva Connections, as well as Viva Insights. So look for those as well.
Because the Viva Learning, that seems to be like connectors into like LinkedIn Learning and Pluralsight. So this, to me, fits very well into onboarding your new employees when you can't usually get them in the office. It's fantastic. Actually, we're testing this today in Microsoft, and it's not just Microsoft and LinkedIn Learning. Pluralsight and other vendors are already signed up as partners, and you can also extend it with your own learning content in your organization. You can pin it to a tab in a channel. You can pin it in the left rail for yourself to get your personal learning associated with it. So it is great news to incorporate that just-in-time learning right with the actions that you're taking with your team from a collaboration perspective. Yeah, because it's what I'm noticing here is like traditionally Microsoft are perhaps targeting or work with the IT department. And increasingly, they're now shifting the focus into the HR department with not just LinkedIn, but with this.
That's why this is the employee experience solutions that we've introduced, our platform. So this is a way of sort of bridging the gap between the connections between employees and the rest of the organization. And that's part of the connections, the learning, and as well as the insights piece as well.
And I suppose this is the new frontier of how to create a corporate culture with a remote workforce.
Yes, which we've learned so much. We have so much data that we've collected over this past year. A lot of times I present that data to our customers and it resonates with them. That's why Insights incorporates things like Headspace, which is a meditation app. And being able to sort of incorporate that in your, check on your pulse. How are you feeling today? And be able to sort of roll up some of that information to provide the organization with insight into how they have to deal with certain aspects of working remote has done to our organization.
So it explains to you how much people are working, because you've actually got a little bit of this already with the Insight Analytics in Outlook as well, haven't you?
My Analytics as well as Workplace Analytics, which is another add-on, but Workplace Analytics sort of rolls up My Analytics anonymously. So across the organization, your HR, or maybe someone who's in charge of productivity, can do a little more insight and analysis on what kinds of things need to be improved and use that as a way of sort of tracking that maybe communications or training or reorganization or what have you are actually helping the organization over time.
Question here, does this integrate with the camera on your laptop on Windows 10? I'm assuming no, actually.
No, it does not. No, the only data that's captured is in the Microsoft Graph.
Right, okay. And that doesn't extend into Windows 10 unless you've got a good corporate policy going into this as well.
No, and we enforce a lot of privacy, especially around that.
This is a little bit of a delicate walk here, isn't it? Because you are going into people's privacy here in terms of email, in terms of wellness. Okay, well, what are you doing with this information?
Well, it's up to the organization. Microsoft has no access to this data at all, but in some countries it's sensitive. Some people have, turned off Delve as an example because they didn't want that information available. But the idea is that when it's brought up to the workplace analytics level, it's completely anonymous. So we don't know. In fact, it won't roll it up unless a manager has more than 5 people because, then you can identify who's there. So all of this data, and of course, it's also done in such a way that is combined and it only provides the analysis. You can't necessarily drill down on a specific team manager or anything like that.
Right. And this is nothing new as well, like employee wellness programs or support. It's nothing new in the workforce. It's just like this has been extended out electronically. So it's just like, nothing new.
It takes advantage of knowing that these are the actions and activities that you're doing from a day-to-day basis. And perhaps, working 16 hours a day is not a good idea. Things like that.
Another question, when will all these features be actually live in your tenant?
Well, the first things to roll out will be in Microsoft Search. So when you saw me do a search on Syntex and then the topic card came up, that's the first thing rolling out for Viva topics. It will be a phased rollout of the other capabilities, including when it's highlighted inside of a document. I'm sorry, it's also actually rolling out with highlights in SharePoint. So if I go to a page and I'll see particular topics highlighted in a SharePoint page, similar to what I showed you in the click-through demo. So that'll be first. SharePoint Syntex is completely rolled out. It's been in GA since the last Ignite session in the fall. So those are there and available today. The other pieces of Viva, both from learning, etc., are rolling out over time.
What's a good typical organization? What's the minimum size of an organization where this is really of value?
There really isn't. It probably depends more on the amount of content that you create and less about the number of people. But if you have, maybe 10,000 or higher documents that it's just so time consuming to manually organize that, then this is fantastic for that and above.
Okay. Another question that came in is that if this is anonymous, how can you figure out if one department or one location needs to have more, I would say wellness, has got more wellness issues than another location if it's anonymous?
Okay, so within workplace analytics specifically, the information is rolled up anonymous, and the only thing that you can do it is at a large organization level. So like your marketing division or your finance department or communications and so forth. The individual has to have access to that insight and knowledge in order for them to do that analysis. So That's why it's typically someone who's running HR or maybe someone who owns productivity. So they're looking for something in particular, and they can't actually analyze the data any deeper than, like I said, an organization that's greater than 5.
Someone's asking about the roadmap for this. Now, I'm assuming obviously that's probably confidential information. So
yes, the capabilities that I kind of ran through with you today, those will be announced on from a timing perspective at Ignite.
Right. Okay. Kat, we're almost up on the hour here. So Kat, thank you very much for your time on this. Very insightful, great questions as well. I think it's a very good direction that what Microsoft have actually done with Teams and with all the data as well on the wellness. You hear this whole Zoom fatigue, and I think this is probably going to be like an increasing talking point, particularly in HR circles in companies.
Absolutely. I'm happy to come back in the future and cover any of the topics in more detail.
Okay, Kat, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.